Hey folks, here's a video that's long overdue. Well, let's take a trip back to 2009 and 2010 when the netbook craze was in full effect. I'm sure a lot of you were there for that, and I, for one, thought that was a pretty fun craze. The computers weren't all that powerful, they didn't do a whole lot, but they were tiny, and I really liked that. And they were still useful machines. You know, people at the time thought they were useless, but if you look at a lot of the tablets now, these are still more useful than some tablets, in my opinion. Anyhow, the netbook craze. I was a part of that. I had about how many netbooks do I have? I've had about four of them over the years. Uh, the first one I got was the Dell Mini 10V, which was the machine with the best keyboard at the time. That was 2009 or 2010. I believe it was like when was that? That had to have been late 2009. I think that I got that. That had the Atom N280 CPU in it. You know, it had 1 gig of RAM, and in order to upgrade it, I had to dismantle the entire machine and flip the motherboard over to get to the RAM slot. That was a lot of fun. Uh, I absolutely hated that about that machine. The other machines I had were all the Asus Triple E PCs that I'm sure were the most famous and the most well known for being netbooks, being the best netbooks at the time. I had the 900, I had the 1000 HE, and I had the 1015 PEM. By far the most well built out of any of those was the 1000 HE. That thing was surprisingly hefty and well built for a consumer grade laptop. Um, but there is a type of netbook that is well above all of those, and that is what I'm going to show you today. I didn't know these existed until a year or two ago, really. Uh, but it's the but Dell actually made a Latitude series of netbooks in 2009, 2010. I wish I had known about these back in the day, or I would have bought one of these and still had it today. But I was able to get one later on for very cheap, so can't be all bad. Um, but Dell released a Latitude series of netbooks at the time, and during that time, the stimulus money was a big thing, and a lot of that went into these netbooks that went into schools. In the college I'm going to right now, someone I know in one of my classes actually recognized this thing as one they used back in school, and a few people in some computer groups I'm in have recognized these too. Someone I know said these were very slow and very terrible at the school he was at, but you know what schools do to computers. They bog them down with all their like really screwed up images and virus programs and bloatware and things like that. They're really not all that bad if you put your own software on them and know what you're doing, and especially when you put Linux on them, they're fantastic. But anyway, this is more about the machine. This is I think the first of the netbooks that Dell had in their Latitude series is the Dell Latitude 2100. It's a pretty ruggedized education grade machine, and education grade seems to be the most rugged and the nicest in my opinion. I like the education grade machines better than the regular business class machines half the time. That's certainly the case with my newer ThinkPad. Uh, it's rubberized all throughout. Uh, the top is, the bottom is, even the bottom of the battery is, which is actually really nice because it doesn't slide across your desk very easily. It doesn't fall out of your lap really easily, and that's really nice. Here's the I/O of the machine. You get Kensington lock and a VGA, of course. You get a air vent, which is more than I can say for the Dell Mini 10V I used to have that used nothing but passive cooling and died as a result of that. USB, audio ports. There's a microphone under this grill here, so it does have a built-in microphone. You get your LED indicators. An SD card slot, which seems to work with SDHC last time I tried it. You get two USB ports. You get an Ethernet port, which is more than I can say for the tablets and the hybrid tablets that I've had over the years. None of them have had a built-in Ethernet port, which makes these infinitely useful for doing network diagnostics, especially at customers' houses and things like that. That's what I used my older netbooks for the most, was networking stuff. And of course you have your power input, which is a standard, Dell barrel type connector. Nothing unusual. You could get generic replacements pretty easily if you happen to lose the adapter or they don't make them anymore. And of course, the bottom. You get your battery slots up here. It came with Windows XP Home Edition, which of course I'm not going to use on here because XP is out of support. Even this Dell logo on the bottom is made of rubber, which is really nice. One of the nicest aspects about this netbook is that it's a business class one. It's a Latitude. So serviceability, they definitely had in mind with these machines. Unlike the Dell Mini 10V I had, where, like I mentioned before, I had to take the keyboard out, take a bunch of screws out, take the motherboard out, flip it over to get to the RAM slot. That doesn't happen here. This piece on the bottom here is just one big plastic piece. There's screws under each of the rubber feet on the bottom, and this comes off as an access panel. For this, what you do is there are two keyboard screws both here and here. You take those out. You can poke a smaller screwdriver through that hole to poke the keyboard up enough for you to grab it and then pull that out by the clips. You take that out. There are 2 or 3 screws under the keyboard you take out. Then you just unscrew all the screws in these feet, and this panel comes off. Now that's still a bit complicated, you know, for easy serviceability, but it is so much easier than that Dell Mini 10V I had. You pull that panel off, you pull this panel off, you get access to everything. So it has that sort of business class feature set still intact. The serviceability is really nice on this. That's part of what I really didn't like on some of the consumer grade netbooks, is that serviceability definitely wasn't in mind in the design, because that's just consumer grade for you. I don't see a slot for a SIM card, but I could just be stupid and not see it. I think some netbooks had that. This one doesn't. Here's the absolutely dinky battery it came with. This battery is, it lasts maybe 2 hours at the most. It says an hour and a half in Windows. I haven't really tested it, but that's what the meter tells me. One thing that was cool about these batteries, though, is they had a little plastic thing here you could take out to put a label in. So what schools I think would do they would label their laptops as to what school they went to and, you know, what number they are on each cart of laptops they have. It's a very, very nice design. I like what Dell did with these. And they also did, I think they did that with subsequent models of this that had better CPUs. This netbook is your absolute classic. It reminds me of my Dell Mini 10V, only it's a much better. It has the same really nice it has a really nice keyboard like the Dell Mini 10V did, except this one is 10 times better. It's a lot more tactile and responsive. I really like that. The keyboard doesn't have any, you know, weird small shift keys like the Asus EEE PCs I had did. This is generally one of the best netbooks I've ever owned. It's fantastic. The only thing that would make it better is a track point, but I'm sure they just couldn't fit that on here. And another thing I like that they did with the Latitude 2100 here is they put the speakers in the screen itself, so the sound is actually directed towards you instead of coming from like down here or something, like it did on some other netbooks I had, where it came from, like, you know, under the front of the laptop there, which just generally doesn't sound that great. I wish they put speakers on the screen on more computers, but, you know, they have to use really small speakers to do that, so it has its consequences. This model does not have a webcam, which is probably a good thing, because I remember back in high school and in college to some extent, all people would do is play with the webcam instead of doing their work in class. So, you know, basically Photo Booth 101 was the name of the class, or Facebook 101, or whatever you want to nickname it. This laptop was designed for Windows XP, but they did roll out Windows 7 options for these later on. There are also later models of this with better processors and stuff, but they all basically have the same sort of design philosophy, which is pretty nice in my opinion. So what did I do to this machine? Or what are the specs of this machine? This is your absolute classic netbook. It has the Intel Atom N270 processor at 1.6 gigahertz. It comes with 1 gig of RAM built into the motherboard, which is, I don't like RAM that's built into motherboards, because if that RAM ever goes bad, you have to replace the system board itself, which sucks. But on a business class machine like this, it makes sense to to a certain degree to me. I don't like it, but it does make sense. You can also add another stick of RAM, which I did. I bumped it from 1 gig to 2. The RAM runs at 533 megahertz, which is kind of slow, but you know what? It works. I added a 1 gig stick, so it's two 1 gig sticks in this particular machine. The Intel Atom N270 was a 32-bit CPU, so that's what you're stuck with. Netbooks from around this time came with 160 gigabyte hard drives usually. I think you could get 80s and 120s and other sizes like that. This one in particular I got had a 60 in it that predated the machine. So I think whoever had this just, threw in whatever drive they could find in there and just said, screw it. So what I did is I replaced that with a 500 gigabyte Toshiba hard drive that I happen to have. And of course, that's a lot nicer because I can store, videos and things like that on here without it being much of a problem, and divide the hard drive in half for Linux and Windows. So that works pretty well for me, I think. Oh, there's one thing I forgot about the hardware. Similar to the ThinkPad X140E, it has this light on the top that indicates network activity or when the network is active. You can set it in the BIOS to be controlled by software or to just be on all the time or set it to just be on all the time, or set it to network activity. What this does is it lets teachers know what students are doing on their computers. And of course, most people aren't going to pay attention to that light, so they won't be any of the wiser, and the teacher will know what's going on. So, there you go. So let me boot the machine up. I have to say, I was impressed that Dell decided to make Latitude series netbooks. This makes them much more. This makes this is what I should have had for a netbook years ago, and this is the one I plan to keep for a while. This one I suspect was part of a school set at one point because the keyboard was a little bit grungy. I had to clean it off with a toothbrush and some alcohol and stuff, and a little bit of Fantastic as well. The thing works perfectly. The rubber's slightly worn on the top, on the edges. The only real bad flaw this thing has is there is a crack in the plastic just below the battery there. I don't know if I can get the camera to focus on it. Probably not, but trust me, there's a crack right there, and it's more cosmetic than anything else. It's in pretty good shape, so that's pretty good for the price I paid. I'm happy. These are the operating systems I have installed in this particular machine. I have Linux Mint 17 Mate 32-bit and Windows 7 32-bit. So I'm going to boot into Linux first, just to show you that. Just to show you how I have everything set up. And show you how fast it boots into Linux. These netbooks make seriously nice Linux machines. And that's the main reason I bought this, was for doing Linux stuff and networking stuff. Because netbooks are just awesome for that. I can leave this somewhere running network stuff and not feel bad about it getting hot or feel bad about it breaking or anything like that. It's just an overall really useful machine for that kind of stuff. I had really specific uses for this. I'm just a traditional laptop kind of guy, so the netbook philosophy works for me. Let me log in here. I don't get the Mint startup sound on this for some reason, but that's okay. Let me turn that brightness down. For the camera there, that's much better. Alright, there's my desktop that I have on like everything that I own. I have Linux Mint 17 Mate Edition on here. Has the Mint menu and everything still. Yeah, there you go. It's a little bit hard to see. This thing is taking its time starting up a little bit because of Dropbox. Yeah, you can see the hard drive sort of doing its thing down there. There we go, there's the Mint menu and everything. Seems to work really well. I can go into Firefox and be, right at home on this machine. And I also have Windows on here because you actually need Windows to connect to certain networks at colleges and places like that. So you really do need both for networking stuff, just because you could be dealing with anything. once Linux is started up on here, it runs pretty darn well. Pretty happy with it. So let's reboot and go into Windows. Alright, Windows is generally what they run in the schools. It was either XP or 7 on these. So, a lot of schools around 2008, 2009, when I was going there, even 2010, were running XP still. I used a bunch of Dell Latitude D630s in a Java class I took that were all running Windows XP still. There you go, that booted up pretty quick. As you can see, I changed my login background because that stupid blue thing annoys me, so let me log in here. Alright, Windows 7 Professional is what I have on here since it's a business class machine. I think that just feels appropriate. See the hard drive working. See, that logged in pretty quickly. See, when a school doesn't own a computer like this, it runs so much better. So as you can see, I've got a lot of stuff on here. I've got ScumVM and my Sega 32X emulator and stuff like that. They all run just fine. I have Office 2010 on here. What else do I have? I have FileZilla, I got Firefox, Skype, all my essentials are on here. DOSBox as well. So, you know, it works pretty well. I like it on here a lot. This netbook in general is really nice for a little specific use case machine, and just to have a machine this small around to use. I really missed having a netbook for little specific uses and purposes and things like that. So I'm glad I was able to get this one for very cheap, $65 for everything, including the battery and the charger. So I think I did pretty well, considering that money does a lot more than $200 on a tablet ever has done for me in the past. So I'm just that kind of guy, you know. It's, you know, there you have it. So that is the Dell Latitude 2100. I think these machines are very nice. I think people don't give them the credit they deserve because they've used them in an environment where the machines installs are absolutely abused, like at schools, and even certain workplaces probably did the same thing back in the day with these. So that, in general, is the Dell Latitude 2100. There are also subsequent versions of this with better CPUs, like I mentioned before. So if you're looking for a business, if you didn't know business class netbooks existed, they're very nice, especially these Dell Latitudes. I like these a lot. So if you don't like the Atom N270, there are better options, newer options than this. So, you know, if you need a tiny computer, and the netbook was something that fit your needs really well, like it did mine. It fits my needs extremely well because it's a very flexible machine that I can do what I want with. And it's a regular computer, and I like regular machines. If you're someone who likes this kind of thing, I would say don't hesitate to grab one of these Dell Latitudes, the netbook series. I think there's 2100s, I think there's 2110s as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, there are other options for these too. Nowadays they have the 12. They also have the 12-inch laptop Latitudes and the 13-inch Latitudes that are out today. But these are smaller than that. So, you know, it was a netbook craze. It was a short craze that came and went pretty quickly. So, you know, there you have it, folks. That's the Dell Latitude 2100. It's a machine that I've enjoyed for the past couple weeks and been overdue to make a video about it, clearly. I like them. These are nice machines. Very nice machines. And schools seem to be decommissioning them nowadays, so, you know, it's not too bad of an idea to grab one. But yeah, I wouldn't hesitate with these. They're pretty nice machines. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and have a good one, everybody. Ciao.